feeling better. I got her message from
Today is the second weekend, Sunday. Everyone's here but Tess.
but she still will stay in bed.
Of course. I mean,
That's exhausting.
if she came today, she'd probably relapse herself.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that point where you're like, I need to get back to life. I have a little bit of energy, and then you do it, and then you extend your sick time by another week, rather than spending the extra 2 or 3 days to really solidify it. Okay. I went to bed almost the minute I went home yesterday. And I'm totally wearing the wrong clothes. I went outside and I'm like, it's 100 degrees outside again. So I may go home at break and change into something a little bit more appropriate for the weather, because I feel like I'm dressed for different weather.
I did the same, but I brought only 3 tops. So
You might need the fan.
yeah.
And we're just waiting for the group to gather, because I'm recording my face. Just want to tell and anyone who looks at this wondering, what are you doing, Leslie? So I'm just, while Tanya's still getting ready, let me just, there's a woman who hosted Stefan Hausner in London recently, and she did a little report. She's a good note taker, and she wrote down a few quotes of his, and one just kind of hit me. The first one, well, one was, where was it? Stefan says, illness is life expressing itself through you. That's kind of a nice quotation. And the second one, this one just like hit me on the head, in mostly a good way, but you know how it is sometimes when someone's really truthful with you. Expectation is the opposite of relation. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one. The force of the system wants completion. We've heard that before in other ways. Ooh, this is good. This is very good. The excluded person or aspect has the power.
Oh, wow.
Constellation is just a tool to bring something into one's awareness. Anyway, so if you're on the ISCA Facebook group or the Family and Systemic Constellations Facebook group, it's Sylvia's post from this morning.
And I got email for more presenters on the conference, and you are one of them.
That's right. I'm a what was it, a highlighted presenter.
Aww.
Do I get any more money? No. Do I get a discount? No. I still have to be one of those 40 who signs up on the 31st to get the discount. I put it into my calendar to make sure I do it.
Is that the one in Virginia Beach?
Yeah. Okay, so I've got a few things I want us to do to get started. The first, and it does include finishing Peter's feedback, but the first one is I want to do a grounding exercise that I think maybe we want to do something like this every Friday morning. And it's the kind of thing that you can do before you do a constellation. So this is the thing you all know and love already. So just take a second, find yourself, find your body, And some of you have heard me do this one before, but I really think that after the last couple of days, this group needs this, which is just to notice your ancestors behind you for a moment. And, you know, father at your right shoulder and mother at your left shoulder, father's father behind your father's right shoulder, and father's mother behind your father's left shoulder, mother's father behind her right shoulder, and mother's mother behind her left shoulder, your grandparents. And then behind that, their parents, 8. Behind them there, 16. Just notice these people behind you. And it's really okay if you sometimes have mixed feelings about them. At this moment, the feelings aren't what's important. It's just noticing it, seeing it. So your reactions are important, but they don't take away from the reality of this life that's come through you. And then add in whatever else is a resource for you in kind of a big way. For some of us, creator or source or God. For some of us, earth. For some of us, maybe some teaching lineages. People who have parented us in other ways in our lives. Places, countries. And I invite you to just take a moment and use your agency, your authority to bring in and evoke the things that are helpful for you. And then take a moment, and just in the way that you do this as a maneuver of consciousness, notice the support of the other 7 people in the room, their ancestors and everything else they've just elicited. So just touch base with Sonia's support, Tanya's support, Nicole, Anna Maria's, Peter's, Josh's, and Leslie's. Just touch base with each one. And then touch base with kind of the all of us, the thing that this class is, and this is where we really want to include Tess. The thing that this class is, it's a thing. We could put in a representative for this class if we wanted to. And then just for a moment, touch base with this room, the 4 walls, the carpet, windows, the views outside, the entire building, the people who are in it or who during the week work in it. And the land underneath our feet. And the various people who have been on it. Going all the way back to the earliest peoples, the Ohlone and even before them. It's kind of like those versions of maps where you've landed somewhere you don't know, and you're looking on the map on the kiosk for the "You Are Here" sign. You are here in this. And anything about all of that, what we just noticed that feels supportive, just feel the support. And you're 100% right and birthright to be here now. And then whatever you want to do with that internally, go ahead and do that. I'll give you a few moments and then invite you to come back at your own pace. So Josh, could you do that kind of super duper quick? I really want to feel the group for a second. Because some people had some responses. What's going on, Tanya? We touched a nerve.
I don't know. Once you said feel the land or whatever, I just started crying.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
And there's other things that not related to this one came up to me, that there is support. It means be receiving.
Means we're receiving, yes.
We
Yeah.
are receiving. It's like for me, it goes to the bow. It's like with bow, there's several, I guess, things that going on. It's like there is a connection, but it's up to me to give permission to this flow to come to me.
Yeah. There's a reason why Bert Hellinger calls it not receiving, but taking.
Taking. So
Yeah.
it's active on my part
Yeah.
to actually not just open the door, but actually actively take,
Yeah.
or maybe not even take, but maybe allow. Also, the word allow to something coming, or to this support coming. So that's kind of the part of it.
This is the whole work that we're up to.
Yeah.
There's this screw you, I don't need you, that your clients come to you with. They don't say that, but they're saying, I'm big, I'm okay. And we're trying to help them allow or take. So thank you for noticing that. And if we have trauma histories, it's going to feel dangerous. to take.
I guess, or sad, or
Which is a form of danger, right? So just really genericizing, you know, too much grief, too much fear, too much shock, too much whatever, you know, like it to take is going to be too sad. Yeah, that does seem to be your work. It came up yesterday too. Yeah.
In that line, how do you reframe, for example, having a, in my case, yes, having a grandfather that did so many things that were, how do you, for example, how do I take it?
How do you ask a client to take it?
The only thing I come to mind is like, it's if he was not there, I will not be here.
Yeah. I once stumbled on a metaphor with Carl Buchheit in a session with him once that was very, very useful, and I've used it a lot since. Everyone here know what cheesecloth is? It's cheesecloth.
Mhm.
It used to be used in cooking a lot more than it is these days, but it's to strain cheese, and it's like the finest form of sieve, really. It, you know, you keep all the curds above and all the water goes below. It's called cheesecloth. And just imagine that you're getting all this energy from your ancestors, all different kinds of energy. And you just put the cheesecloth there. And just the strength that is good for you comes through. And the rest remains behind. I mean, that's what we mean when we say things, I leave it with you, that sort of stuff. It's not leave everything with you because we want to say yes to the life. The life is kind of the moisture that can get through.
So we get to choose what we take or what we come out.
Mm-hmm. 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 And it is a choice, but it's also, there are proper orders of what we should and should not take, in a sense. There's a few other things I want to make sure we do in the morning. And I just want to list them for us. So one, we want to give Peter feedback on his constellating. I wrote HK. What the hell does HK mean? Oh, housekeeping. One time, this was years and years and years ago, when I still had a hard copy calendar. I was talking to someone and we agreed to have lunch someday, and I wrote it in my calendar as lunch. So the date comes and I'm like, I'm supposed to be having lunch with somebody. So housekeeping, you make these little shorthands for yourself and you think you know what you're going to mean when you see it days later. But I do also want to get back to that conversation that started to happen yesterday, but there wasn't time and space for, around scheduling and timing the weekends. And if there's any adjustments we want as a group to make that, or we own it and we'll live within those structures. And then through those conversations, I just want to feel the tenor of the group and see if there's anything we need to process, okay? I do have a set of topics for today that I planned last week, which is social issues constellations, and larger social issue stuff like colonialism and racism and things like that. And then the social fields, I have a social fields exercise for us. But, if we have to do other kinds of processing, part of your job as a facilitator is to stay responsive to the system, but also not so responsive that the group commitment to what we want to get done together doesn't get done, and you have to have a balancing of those things. It's always a little tricky balancing thing. But these things I do want to start with. So do we want to just start with giving Peter some feedback? Okay, why don't you come on up and pull up a chair? So we can just feel like we've completed that. Just saying, Tess, you can sit over there for a second. So we don't feel like we're squishing her. So the 4/5 of the work that you really felt like you were in charge of, how did you feel about that?
I think at the beginning I started to realize I felt a little, well, I was feeling terror, but it didn't, it was the terror in the system, I think, more than it was my own. Like I felt, I switched in when we were doing the interview to see what was there, especially with like great grandfather and grandfather, and I felt this sort of like underlying terror, and then I noticed that kind of tension in myself as I was facilitating, and I felt ultimately pretty good with it. I was definitely confused as far as when I asked you for help. Because I wasn't sure, well, two things. I wasn't sure where to go, and then I was also, like Tanya has got a lot of good information, and the representative was talking a lot.
Excuse me, Steve's booked in a couple times. I'm sorry. Can I help you? I have no idea. I know this world, and that's all I know. Sorry.
And then I think as a facilitator, I kind of wanted to ask people to hold the comments for a little bit because I kept getting wrapped up into whatever was happening. But I also appreciated that. But so I was kind of wondering what the balance is when representatives are usefully sharing information, things are moving, and I need a minute to sit and kind of figure out where to go.
Yeah.
When to ask them to hold it, and when to. Yeah, so that was a little bit.
Yeah. Thank you for naming that. That's really, really important because there are times I've even done this one-on-one with a client when I need to pause and feel into the system, and others can take that as a cue to talk some more.
Right.
Because no one's talking.
Right.
And sometimes I'll say to the client sitting across from me, "Give me just a second. I want to hear what you're about to say, but give me just a second." And also I've been known to just turn to the representatives and I'll say, just whatever you got going, just hold on for a second. I need a little time to feel into this. And it's like stopping the flow of the water for a minute.
Yeah.
Well,
I also noticed too, like what as people represented in the fields when I was facilitating, I was thinking certain corrections and watching them happen in some of the reps, which was sort of interesting. Like little procedural things. I'm like, really great if they would start referring to that person by the gender of the role or non-specific, and that happens. So
okay.
kind of like, oh, cool. So there is a certain point where I feel like my stance really has a big impact in what's actually happening and showing up. And developing that more. But it felt good. But I without that child part, I'm not sure if I would have. I don't know where I would have gone necessarily.
Right. Yeah. So let me ask the group now. We're asking you to remember the constellation a little bit. Everyone sort of feel like you're remembering the correct constellation here because we did do 2 yesterday. When Peter asked me for some help and I suggested the younger part of the grandfather was missing, go to before that. What's something you might have tried? And you can come up with an answer for that now. Before the moment where Peter took my suggestion to bring in a younger version,
which is what
of the
Leslie
grandfather.
So Leslie came in and sat behind.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was having trouble tracking that because I think you gave that to him privately.
Yeah.
I did.
Okay.
So before that choice to bring in that role,
yeah.
What's something you might have tried to do?
I forgot situation. I forgot, where were you before you went
So
there?
you were here.
Yes, I remember
And I was
that.
leaning
there,
And-
and she
against-
wasn't in. Leslie hadn't taken the role yet, so
And
that was right when she
Nicole
was.
was over there.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, and
So, and when Leslie came in,
that was the role. That was,
and she immediately went
No,
there.
no, no. The
she
first
went to sit
movement for this
behind-
role was leaning against what Nicole was representing.
Okay,
Was
now I
Anna-
remember.
Anna
I
Maria
forgot
was
that
in
part.
that point, but-
Anna Maria was War was
Yes,
World War
oh,
II.
Yeah. And then you went there, right? At one
Later
point.
on,
Eventually, yeah, like, there was a
Uh-huh.
couple of movements.
And
before
that's what the question is. What
No, no, no.
that. Before
what-
putting Leslie in.
before putting you in?
Yeah,
Before putting in that role,
Did you suggest to give me?
yeah.
that's what I was just saying. So I suggested
Ah, you
he
did. I
he
don't
he
remember
reached out,
any of this.
he reached out to
I was
me.
holding the wall.
I do understand you guys were in roles. Yeah.
It's just
Um,
difficult now. and
Peter
confusing.
reached out to me and said, "Do you have an idea?" And I suggested bringing in a role for the younger part
Specific
of
question.
father.
which was beautiful. That was really perfect.
But there are 20 other things that could have happened that also would not have been wrong.
Yeah,
Well, maybe not 20, but what's something else? And it was feeling that was one of those points where I would certainly sit there and go, "Huh, I don't know what to do with this right now. I wonder what to do next," because this is great, this is useful, but it's not going to go. There's something is needed.
Yeah.
So, what might you? Just an idea, like a different role you might have brought in,
probably
or
would have brought in a resourceful ancestor for the father.
okay.
Would
That's
have,
what I was thinking.
yeah, would have been like the next step, I think, for me.
Okay. Oh, that's perfectly reasonable movement. You had your hand up.
Yeah, that you thought to bring that because the father was not responding to the daughter. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Or-
Yeah,
Well,
Dad was pretty
yeah.
stuck, and that stuckness didn't seem to be
Yeah.
the locus.
Yes.
Of the
and
constellation.
Even his father was not working. Too.
Well, and I mean, he did to a certain extent, but not in being able to relate to his child
I
and
see.
that child part, which the representative was kind of heavily identified with. At least, those two.
And I could also tell that bringing in World War II was itself an attempt to make that movement,
Mhm.
or to bring in the thing that might be missing.
Yeah,
And I thought it was extremely effective.
yeah.
It just didn't.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
It
that-
needed something else
So
too.
that was some of it that was a little intense too. I'm like, okay, we've got World War II, and we've got essentially like sort of like the Nazi ideology that's running here. We've got two representatives who are like really fine with that. I'm not trying to make them wrong for their experience, and I don't want to change Dad or like how do we resource him without. So my own conflict of like, okay, like everybody was really good at being a Nazi here, or at least Dad's dad was, and how do we bring in resourcefulness that's good for the daughter who probably doesn't have the same kind of ideology, that same strength is not necessarily quite right.
So one thing that I don't know is helpful or not, but I don't assume that strength from war is a Nazi thing.
Well, this was history. This was
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that sort of archetypal,
oh, right,
I join in the battle, I become a soldier, I become strong,
right.
feels like the sour lemon men are given in war. Like the least I can do is feel strong in this situation. So I'm not trying. I wouldn't in the
Flip it too.
yeah, in the situation, I wouldn't be trying to deal with the Nazism, but that sort of war thing.
Right.
So for what it's worth, and you were going to say, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was going to say as like an opposite, so somebody who did maybe survive the war.
Yeah.
As a
Oh,
resource and actually, like, I don't know, learn from it or gave, went through this
Yeah.
with wisdom. Or I don't know how to formulate it, but somebody who had it as their actual resource.
As a
war
resource to
The,
bring
the
in.
war would be, that
Yeah.
would be a resource for the grand, or for the father.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Who did it differently or who saw it differently. I don't know if
Or maybe
Makes
those who
sense.
came through intact.
maybe.
Or this is getting a little hollow levels, but the version of father who did not go through war,
Oh,
for whom World War II did not happen. That gets to the
Oh,
workshop I
fathers,
did
yes,
at the
yeah,
conference, which is
Yeah.
the alternative lives
Yeah.
kind of thing.
That's, yeah. Thank you. There are many ways you could go.
I can't remember something. What was the desire for the client?
And that was the thing too. Like I wrote it down, and I think some of it was to.
Several levels of.
I don't have a.
It was something about belonging or connecting to
Well,
others.
accept what was.
That's
that
what was and
the
is,
issue.
right?
That was the main issue, and clients had accept what was, and also
What is?
or
Consequence
what
of
is,
what is.
yeah.
It was and is. Yeah.
But kind of
Yeah.
those parts I sort of glossed over because I needed the meat of that, the underneath the
Wasn't
surface.
there something about abandonment?
There was the
Hard to
abandonment.
open.
The issue was abandonment, but
Yeah.
the statement was to accept what was and then consequently what.
Yeah, but I think there's also a part about reconnecting with feeling, noticing in yourself that don't do well with neediness.
That is true.
Neediness, trusting people to
and
open
trusting
up.
people. Yeah.
That was the thing, opening up with people more. And that was the one piece of feedback I gave Peter yesterday, was that I was listening to the interview, and Anna Marie actually picked up on it in the next constellation. I could tell I wanted to hear a stronger desire from Sonia. And that might have needed a little work, because part of the patterning is not to have a strong desire, right? We had that conversation about going to Germany, right? I'm over here wanting Sonia to have a better outcome than going to Germany. That's not part of my dignity, right? It's part of hers. But and it might have taken a little of your NLP fancy footwork to elicit a somewhat stronger desired state, because the stronger and cleaner and truer you can make the desired state, without it that will lead to constellation fuzziness.
Yeah.
Because it helps create the intention around which the constellation can constellate. Yeah, and it's also just good for the client. Yeah.
I have a question to Peter. So when you were giving feedback a couple of minutes ago, that at the, one point during the interview, you felt I don't remember what you
Terror.
felt. Terror.
Yeah.
Yes, and what did you do it?
Well, so when I first felt it, it was switching into the representatives that were being mentioned, that the roles for dad's dad, and I just got a wave of and words of terror, and just kind of started to feel like a freeze experience. And then when we got into it, I noticed that feeling kind of still in me, along with like I felt on edge a little bit, but I couldn't tell you like whether that was the field or stance or what. That was just the experience. And I just kept getting curious and asking questions. That was even though that was really bad.
Yeah, I guess my question is because I also during interview very often feel something.
Yeah.
Right? So you feel something and it's like, okay, if I feel something.
Well,
So what the hell I'm doing with this?
Sorry, I should clarify. So I actually felt I switched into the issue before we got the parents. That's what I meant to say. So I switched in to the issues that was brought in with the abandonment, felt terror, and then when we had we had dad and mom, we talked about dad and mom, and then we talked about dad's dad, dad's mom. Well, actually, they weren't mentioned, which got me curious, and then I could feel a resonance with the terror more over there. So I was looking for a similar feeling
Okay.
from what I could
Gotcha.
feel at the beginning to who I put in.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting, if I had been doing that constellation, I might have gone mom's side.
Yeah. me
Yeah.
I was
too.
very
I
attracted to Sonia's issues with her mom,
would-
but I think you made the right move. It makes sense to me. And maybe there's no wrong move. I mean, they're probably, both sides are contributing
I did
to
feel
this issue.
I did feel like mom was missing too, but for the amount of people we had, I felt like.
Oh,
Yeah, that's.
I would say very rarely try and tackle both mom and dad in the same
Yeah.
constellation. You know, really. Every once in a while, like towards the end, I'm thinking, I really need mom here, but am I about to open a Pandora's box? Oh, please, mom, show up as resourceful. Please, 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 please. There's one other thing that I just really want to share as facilitator the thing that hit me, like, be on the lookout for the thing that whacks you in the head. The feeling of terror served that for you. For me, and it actually didn't happen in the interview. I think you shared it somewhere in the constellation when you started talking to her again. But the picture, I get a little choked up about it right now, of the 13-year-old having to be on the roof, or 15 years old, shooting the machine gun. For me, that was the linchpin. That just broke my freaking heart. And so when that happens to me, I get curious about whether that's the broken heart, if it's the linchpin of kind of the story. And it certainly includes we can only imagine the terror of that moment.
I think my own, so noticing in myself, my own kind of, whatever there is around being in rapport with Nazi Germany. And there was a piece there that just like, I didn't know what to do with it. So there's something there for me I felt out of rapport with.
Which is also Sonia's out of rapportness, to be fair, right?
Right.
And a little more closer to home. and understandably.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because that was some of the experience, was like, I can't change him. I can't change him. Like, he is the way that he is. Which actually was interesting that even popped up, because I'm like, now that I think about it, I don't usually think I'm trying to change people like constellation. So that was probably really good information.
It's your thing.
Yeah, really good information, but may not necessarily. Cool. That's the whole switching into other people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good enough for now?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, good.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
You can let Tess be back in her chair.
Yes.
I'll carry her over here.
So just a little bit of housekeeping. Make sure we get the housekeeping done. Those of you who have not made coaching appointments, please make coaching appointments.
Oh, yeah.
Please.
Can you say a little bit more about coaching appointments?
Okay.
I know about scheduling, but
Yeah, sure.
They're good.
I am sure.
It's an hour of
It really is what you want.
Whatever.
I know that's an impossible generalization, but it is true. But I'll give you a few things that sort of make sense. So coaching, it really is intended as coaching, although as some people in this room know, when I know you well enough, sometimes it can get a chunk of change work done in there as well. The less I know you, the 60 minutes starts to feel is a little bit short to really get in there with you quickly. But I am getting to know all of you. So one thing to do is to bring a facilitator issue. We don't have a lot of time to go in great depth here all the time about our own facilitator issues. This is time for me to interact with you specifically around, I hate interviewing, or, certain topics terrify me, or my confidence isn't improving, or whatever. You just pose the issue. I do some interview around this, and then do a little inquiry around what's the systemics of this stuckness, and maybe include a little bit of change work, but also to the degree you and I think have talked about this. I think the change work coaching combination, when done in rapport, is very powerful. So sometimes I can suggest little tips and things that will help grease the wheels of whatever the facilitator issue is. And sometimes it's a learning issue. It's just if you just don't know that there's an easier way to interview or something like that. So you can bring a facilitator issue. For those of you who are working on business stuff, you can bring a building your business issue. Now, I can only do so much, but I can definitely, like for instance, I think you and I talk right off the bat about what her business model might be. We got a lot done talking about that. And what might be a next 1 or 2 steps around that. There are some sort of standard business models for constellators, and then there's a lot of creative other ways to do it. And then, you know, just go under you can really do a kind of a nuts and bolts. How do you work with social issues constellations? And you can get some personal coaching on it, some very specific nuts and boltsy kind of a thing that you would like to do. And then it can be other issues. So Leslie, last weekend just brought up all my mother stuff. I just need to talk to you about my mom and get some support and maybe a little change work around that. So it is anything, truly. The idea is the reason for including them is for you to have some personal one-on-one time with me to deepen the learning you're doing here. So generally we're wanting to stay in this space in the spirit of your investment in this course, but you know, you get to use it the way you want. You can really improve your experience if you, in your making the appointment, there's a little place to comment or send me an email ahead of time telling me what it is that you might like to work on, because that it cues it up for you and it cues it up for me, and we're not spending the first 10 minutes splashing around trying to figure out what you want in the session. My experience over and over and over and over again is the people who send me an email ahead of time telling me a little bit about how they're doing and what they want to look at versus the people who get on the phone and say, I don't know, I haven't thought about it, how about, is that the former group just get a lot more benefit from it.
Is it a Zoom meeting or it's
Yeah, and I'll record it. Having said that, I just want to say a word about recording change work when it's yours and watching it later on. This is from hard-learned experience. I don't tend to recommend you watch your own change work or re-listen to your own change work, because to make sense out of it, you've got to reinstall the problem. You've got to like start from the beginning of that interview of the constellation and remember, you know, and the part of change work is getting a little amnesiac in a sense about what the problem was, or not being able to kick it up again. And, you know, I was really reactive about that thing, and I just am not anymore. And now if you watch yourself being interviewed and you're in it, then you have to kind of, and I did this with, I got demoed a few times at NLP Marin, and I got the videos and I watched them, and I think I reinstalled all my problems. So I don't tend to recommend it. And I have people who, when they have their own constellations, they're ready to videotape it and everything. I'm like, I just want you to think about it before you go and rewatch it.
On the same topic, not about recording, but in general, would you like recommend for people, for the clients, to talk about constellation with somebody or not or anything, or do you have any about this?
I'm very gray area about that. I like Peter's metaphor about the painting. I think that's a very useful one. I do acknowledge not thinking or talking about your constellation afterwards, especially with loved ones, very close loved ones, is like trying to not think about a pink elephant. It's right there. So I just, when, you know, I usually say something along the lines of try and engage it in a right brain way instead of a left brain way. And then I'll just really give an example, like, you know, for instance, please don't sit down with your friend who was there and say, the one who was representing Uncle Joe, I wonder what he meant when he turned to the left, and that kind of analysis. Because there is this temptation to go home and like re-drill through the whole constellation. And that's what I try and communicate, inviting them to not do. And then, you know, after a few weeks, you know, do whatever. And particularly if a partner is there, often someone very close to them, a good friend is there. You know, I know you two are going to drive home and start talking about this. So I have just a little warning, you know, just hold it in a certain way, or talk about the baseball games or something, the weather. And I don't do the whole do not talk about this for 2 weeks thing, because I just don't think it's realistic. I just, I've never been able to do it for my constellations. So.
Wow, I do it all the time.
Good for you.
I wait until I forget that I want to talk about it, and then I'll notice, oh, I had a constellation. Oh, it's been like a week and a half. All right, now I can talk about it.
What a willpower you have.
Yeah, I'm an eternal navel gazer. So if there's something I can kind of
Well, I have plenty of other things.
to navel gaze on. Okay, so other housekeeping, partnering, that went okay.
Yeah, it was good work.
Do we need to rearrange? Okay, so who are you with?
Sonia.
Let me just put in the groups as they were. Josh, Sonia, and then it was,
Just Tanya
Peter, Nicole.
and
and then the other three.
Yeah, I didn't participate.
Oh,
Yeah. So you can
Peter
next
and
time.
Nicole. Okay. Okay. So let's have it Anna Maria and Tanya.
That's help.
And one of these people is going to have to be in a threesome again, but the next time we'll make sure that you are not. Peter and Tess, and then Josh. Oh no, that's not going to work. Peter and Sonia, and then Josh, Tess, and Nicole. Okay. Everyone okay? And you have your sense of the pattern. So during lunch or you guys reach out to Tess. Anything else on housekeeping? Rujamandir Constellations, we're ending at 5 today. The third weekend, we're going to end at 6 on Sunday because I don't have constellations. But the last one, which is 5/21, we are going to end at 5 p.m. There are other constellations between now and then, so you can just look at my website and see those. Our next weekend is 4/21 to 23, and our next Zoom meeting is 4/18. And the people in the business integration, I am not reviewing, so I don't confuse everybody else. If you need a reminder, I can look that up for you. Oh, and a reminder that Nature Constellations return. It's really fun. I don't think I've crashed anybody out. It's got a more playful, light tone generally.
Mushrooms representatives.
Yeah, right. Wandering hikers coming through as representatives.
Sunday?
It's a Saturday.
It's a Sunday.
I believe it's a
It's
Saturday.
really
I hope it's a
good.
Saturday.
Really representative.
And the thing that I'm finding very exciting about it is that one thing we can say about nature, it has this quality of accepting what is. You know, the tiger ate the gazelle. Nobody's seeing a therapist about this, right? You know, the tree fell over, new life comes forth, right? And so there's a way in which when we do this in the context of nature and with nature, my experience is that people leave in better rapport with themselves and what is, rather than having the what's not working all riled up, which is sometimes what constellations can do a little bit of, especially to people who are not having their own constellations done. So I really like it for that reason. And we do lots of little things, and it's just got a slightly more playful, lighthearted quality to it. So I encourage you to come to that and bring your friends.
I'm gonna run down the hall really quick.
Okay. The next topic is the time issues. So when you, but we can get started talking. So my original idea, and I'm happy to have this adjusted, truly. This was just my idea, was that the mornings generally on the weekends would be for topics and doing exercises on topics. So it's not just all listening in the morning, but it's more listening in the morning. And then the afternoons are for constellations, hopefully do 2 for you guys to do. And, roughly split that in half. So from 2:30 to 6, that is, the goal is to have one from 2:30 to about 3:45, so that there can be 15 minutes of feedback, and then a break from 4 to 4:15, and then the final one being 4:15 to about, give or take, 5:30, plus 15-minute feedback, and then 15 minutes for some debrief at the end of the day. So we're not all trying to run out of the room. I understand that we're not going to hit that perfectly. But if the first one goes to like 4:30, then it's really going to shift the balance of things quite a bit. Anyway, that was the goal of all this. And I'm happy to see it change. That's okay. We could do one in the morning and one in the afternoon. We can let the first one run as long as it wants to run, and then whatever time we have left over, we do something useful with of some way. Whatever feels right. I'll just review that this was the goal of the afternoons, 2:30 to 3:45, a constellation plus 15 minutes feedback, 15-minute break, and then the next constellation with 15 minutes feedback, and then 15 minutes at the end of the day for just for us to debrief together generally. So what do people think? Yes, Nicole and then Tanya.
You answered it. I just needed to clarify.
Great.
Got it.
Yeah, I would suggest one constellation in the morning and one before lunch and one constellation after. So for me it feels more balanced. So first of all, the constellation would also bring some topics that we can talk about during. So it wouldn't be going one after another.
Okay.
And so it gives some time to process as well.
Would you
during
like
the lunch even to process? So there's something that. For me, it
would you like the in this picture, this scenario, this proposal, for after a little bit of check-in and whatnot, to launch into a student constellation first thing?
I don't know.
Or do it in the middle of the
maybe
morning?
Maybe before lunch, I don't know, but that's kind of like we have a break in between, so it gives a little bit more time for everything. For the facilitator to go through and maybe have some questions a little bit after lunch, or for the client or for others to observe. So
Is that 2 constellations? One in the morning, one in the afternoon?
Yeah. So first of all, it would kind of for sure we would have 2 constellations. Otherwise, sometimes we don't have enough time for the second one.
Right.
I don't know. For me, it feels more balanced. But,
fair enough.
I concur. I actually like that. And my preference would probably be to have the morning time be check in whatever material we're doing, stop at the right time so we have the full length of time. Because one of the things that happens sometimes when we come back from lunch is it's not 2:30, it's maybe it's 2:40.
Right.
And then by the time we're done actually like talking, figuring out who wants to do it, all that stuff, it's not actually, it's like 2:50 or 2:55 by the time the interview starts. So if we know for sure, like come back from break at this time, okay, morning break is done, now we're doing the constellation, and then we go to lunch break, come back, do whatever we need to, but we have like a firm start time, we've got the cushion. It does mean that it's that we have to measure or restrict ourselves as far as how much free conversation we get into so that we can cover the material that you have for us. But also have some time for us to talk about what comes up in constellations. I like that idea.
My only dilemma with that is that if it's the second half of the morning and it's doing the going long thing, people are starting to do the getting hungry thing. So Tanya's alternative of doing a check-in, doing a morning check-in, and then doing a constellation, and then whatever's left of the morning, I do material on. At least means, because I feel it, and I've noticed other people feeling it, that when we start hitting one, this group needs to eat.
I do want to make sure that we get through the material that you have for us.
Yes, I think that's actually important.
I think if what I feel we have a growing edge is our time, and the balance sounds interesting, and to be able to try to facilitate and be mindful of the time. Like you have a client, and it's you have to honor that time. And if we just try to go over because we're just learning, we have to maybe bring that into the facilitating teaching. It's the time aspect of it. I don't know. I mean, with some grace. I'm not saying it too edgy.
And exceptions, right? As I've been known to go 15 minutes long at Rudramandir. And I feel very bad when I do it. I'm like, thank you for all staying. I'm so grateful.
But don't you always, I mean, what I've noticed is that getting the group agreement consensus, if we need to do that.
Right. Yeah. I usually, when I start to get close to 9:30 and I see we're not finishing, I say, listen, guys, we're probably going to go 10 minutes long.
Well, so I guess the one thing is the interview process. Most of us are going to have done the interview before we actually sit down and do the constellation. So when we're at Rudramandir, or when we're at our space doing the constellation, like what, 75 minutes is about right. But the interview process, especially if we're working with students here who may or may not necessarily have the thing super teed up, it's going to depend on the person how long that takes. So 5 minutes or 20 minutes. No one's taking that long. But what I was hoping for, I just don't think with the format it would work. I was hoping that there'd be an opportunity to do like, I guess I don't really need to do that, like real in-depth interviews, but really, like we're getting to it. I don't need to do real in-depth interviews, but I don't want that to dig into my constellation time, because then I feel like the pressure
the pressure thing, I'm just going to invite everyone to keep being with. What's very clear to me is when I'm interviewing someone, it's part of the constellation. And I frame it that way, like things are already getting kicked up and moved along. Even when I do it on the phone ahead of time. For those of you who have done a Stefan Hausner workshop or more conventional workshops, like they're 2 days long and the person chooses from who's there, and not everyone's going to get a constellation. That's the classic format. The interview has to be like 3 minutes long. And I invite you all to experiment with all this stuff. Like, make your interview a Bert Hellinger interview. Anna Maria sits down and I say one word. And Anna Maria says, Fruit Loops. And I'm like, okay, let's go. To really experiment, like even with what's the least amount of information that gets me where I need to go. And that makes you more flexible for different formats. And I'm not saying that's required, But this is a place where you can try different things and find out what it feels like. I remember when I first tried to stretch beyond some of the things I had been taught and had kind of gotten down, and it felt really destabilizing, but it was ultimately kind of helpful in many ways. And then to also be able to feel that a really amazing constellation could happen in 20 minutes. And I really do buy this blind thing. I invite you all to experiment. Like if the reveal happens earlier, does it move things forward more quickly? So these are just all things to play with. Yeah.
Just a thought, what if when we have the constellation that we just have them signed up already? And if you wanted to have a longer interview process, I don't know. I mean, we could play a little bit. Okay.
I don't mind the complicating, actually, and it came to my mind. I think the loss there would be the spontaneity of who needs it and who wants to work.
Unless you put it as a topic and maybe a focus that day or something.
Well,
We could
also-
mix some and some. I mean, we could have some that are pre-assigned and some that are more spontaneously chosen.
Also, everyone getting to watch the interview process. I assume
Yeah, it's also.
There's that, yeah, as a teaching tool, as to.
I mean, I get good insight into what questions people ask.
Yeah.
So we're looking at what, like an hour and a half as our main time chunk for constellation processes.
And it's okay if it turns out the constellation, the whole thing from beginning to end is 45 minutes.
Sure. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
We want to actually leave it open to the possibility that this system is ready to get into order. Like I said, one of the most powerful I ever had was me, commitment, obligation, and work. And in 15 minutes, my whole world got rocked. But yeah.
So that would be, say, starting at 10. So starting at 10, 30-minute check-in, 10:30, we're doing the constellation. Or quick break, 10:30 constellation. Done by noon, then an hour of material, and then going to lunch.
We can try that. See what happens.
And then the afternoon, however we want to do it. If you want to do it right when we got back for lunch, or make it the last thing of the day.
And then there's the potential of replacing one anxiety with another, which is, the anxiety of not having enough time for constellations versus the anxiety of getting the material you all want. We'll just have to check it.
Yeah.
Just check if the balance is feeling like it's holding a little bit. So I want to just see how that feels for people. Check-in in the morning, followed by a student constellation. Rest of the morning is planned material. Lunch, another student constellation. Rest of the afternoon is planned material.
The material might change based on what's happening.
As is already the case, so that's
And
already
also
happening.
Be flexible with feeling what needed.
Absolutely. I mean, like at the end of the other day, no one really wanted to do a constellation.
Yeah.
So we did many constellations, and that was a sense of that people were glad to do that.
So when we first started having this conversation, my first impression was keep the way it's been. But as you all are talking, the thing that you just named, I'm open to trying.
Yeah, we can, we'll do it on the next Friday, and if it bombs spectacularly, I'm a big believer in being a learning organization, not a perfect organization, but to look at what's going on and then adjusting. That's what I say to people who have their own businesses, feedback, not failure, to be curious about, like, instead of saying, it's not working, say, oh, this is really interesting, it's not working, what could we adjust or learn from the not working? Or it's not that it's not working, but it could be better.
I think this would be fun to try.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and also it needs to be, I like the small constellation.
Well, that has to be part of the material.
Yes.
So that's that. We'll just have to see how that works in real life. I have to admit, I have a little bit of a feeling like yesterday's balance, a little bit of having 2 student constellations, one that was a little longer and one that was a little shorter, like something that's more in the hour and a half frame and one that's in the more 45 minutes to an hour frame. There's something about that. Instead of assuming that all of them are going to go an hour and a half,
Yes.
somebody could feel like, I have a real issue, but I think it's a 45 minute to an hour issue. There's something about that instead of just getting into the feeling that all constellations have to be 1 to 2 hours long.
Well, we can still put that limiter on as long as it's not. We have the awareness of it. I wasn't even thinking about that until we got into this place.
Yeah.
We can still put that on, have that be part of it, because then we get more time to play with 3D constellations or more time with the material. So we give the option to choose it versus having to react to someone else's long constellation by doing a short constellation.
Do we want to pre-decide, and while being flexible and open to the moment, of a longer student constellation and a shorter student constellation?
Can you repeat that?
I would like to shoot to set the limiter for short and say, like, have that be the intention without it being forced. That's the difference.
I didn't understand the difference between what I just said.
Oh, I thought you were saying having one be longer and one be shorter.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm feeling like the goal would be great to see how condensed we can do it.
Do all of them.
Yeah, to see without having it be forced specifically, because we only have so much time. So take the scarcity out of it, but bring the choice in to choose to do it shorter, and have that be a goal without the anxiety of, we're running out of time. We have the extra cushion if we need it.
It would be an interesting exercise at some point to give everybody the job of doing a complete constellation in 30 minutes. And just to see what that feels like. Like, how can I get in rapport and engage the system in 30 to 45 minutes as kind of an exercise?
Sure.
And I like the exercise you gave me, to look at the clock and see what is
right at the beginning.
I think if we all start with that exercise, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, to feel the space of it. And then one can like, I do this during interviews. I say, this is a monster of a constellation. Holy crap. And I'll say, I want to let you know we're going to do the chunk we have available. There's probably 2 or 3 constellations here. And I am not going to try and do all of them. I want you to know that.
Yeah.
So that it serves lots of different purposes. Around, how much we ask the client to take on at any given time, what's available to move, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so having said all that, I just want to check in. Is there anything else that the group needs to check in about generally? Because then after we finish this conversation, we're going to take a quick break because I have to pee. And it's around that time. And then we'll do a student constellation. Actually, I need to, because we've kind of we've let this replace, in a sense, my material for the day. How would you like to deal with this?
Start that next time, because we weren't planning for it this time. Let's start the student constellation in the morning the next time we get together.
But today is the 1 hour shorter, right?
Exactly, and I have that planned out.
Yes, so maybe you go
stick with the plan for now.
Yes.
Okay. And then anything else that people need to just bring into the room? Anything else?
I just wanted to the feeling safe enough and okay enough to feel so publicly and open with all you guys is really appreciated. So slightly embarrassing when it happens, getting over that, but just the fact that it can happen here is pretty amazing. So that was all.
Okay.
Yeah, I felt the same way. We're getting to this point when we're really comfortable.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool.
Yeah.
I really appreciated it. I was thinking, I hope I'm that courageous the next time I have something come up for me.
So you modeled very, yes, you did.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you too.
Yeah.
Seriously,
Yes.
yeah.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else that anybody needs to get into the space? And that doesn't, this is not your last chance.
Thank you.
Forget about it. All personal things cannot be spoken about for the rest of the process. All business, all the time. Yeah? No. No. Okay, let's take a break. Be back by 25 after, please.